I think John's quality as an actor, as a comedian, as a funny person, he had the ability, who he really was.
Eugene Levy has always been the unsung genius who is responsible for some of the most iconic moments in the history of comedy. On the other hand, Levy has been keeping something from John Candy, his longtime friend and co-star, until now. He has withheld something from him. The well-known actor and comedian, John Candy, is finally revealing a side of himself that we have never seen before. He is 77 years old. To add insult to injury, his revelation is both heartbreaking and shocking. Given that he is known for his deadpan wit, what could possibly cause him to choke up in front of the camera? It is possible that the truth about their friendship will cause your heart to break. During his childhood, Eugene Levy was raised in a humble Jewish family in the heart of Hamilton, Ontario. Meanwhile, his father, Joseph, was employed as a foreman at an automobile manufacturing plant. His mother, Rebecca, was a homemaker. Fred and Barbara were his cousins and siblings. He had a wealthy family background, with his mother hailing from Glasgow and his father's Sephardi roots tracing back to Spain and Bulgaria. Even though life was not always a walk in the park, the experiences he had helped mold him into the person he eventually became. When Eugene was a student at Westdale Secondary, he was not known for his comedic abilities, but rather for his leadership abilities. He served as the president of the student council. Subsequently, while attending McMaster University, he became aware of his passion for film. During his time as vice president of the McMaster Film Board, a student film organization, he had the opportunity to interact with the American filmmaker Ivan Reitman. In that moment, his career in the entertainment industry began to take off and become more successful. Once Eugene was cast in the role of Godspell in the 1972 production of Godspell in Toronto, he received his big break. It was originally intended to be a short show, but it turned out to be a huge hit, and it not only helped Eugene launch his career, but it also helped other actors like Victor Garber, Andrea Martin, Gilda Radner, and Martin Short launch their businesses. That time period was truly remarkable. It was brimming with vitality and optimism, but there was also a certain degree of uncertainty. In spite of this, it was without a doubt that Eugene possessed a unique talent that would continue to grow over time. In later years, he discovered that he was able to cultivate his sense of humor at Second City in Toronto. On the television show Second City, he played an assortment of eccentric characters, frequently with a nerdy twist. Earl Camembert, a clumsy news anchor, was one of his loyal followers' favorite characters. The impressions that he gave of famous people, such as Perry Como, Sean Connery, and Alex Trebek, were absolutely hilarious. Nevertheless, his creative flair was highlighted by his original characters, such as Bobby Bittman and Sid Dithers. In spite of the growing fame that surrounded him, Eugene maintained his groundedness. He didn't try to get more attention. Rather, he concentrated solely on his craft, regardless of whether he was playing a leading role or a supporting one. Through the decade of the 1980s and the decade of the 1990s, he became a well-known face in the film industry, making appearances in films such as National Lampoon's Vacation and Splash. In spite of the fact that his characters were not always the main characters, he had the ability to leave an impression on people, even with the most minor roles. Through his collaboration with Christopher Guest on documentaries such as A Mighty Wind and Best in Show, he was able to manifest himself in a different manner. During the production of A Mighty Wind, he received a great deal of praise for his performance as Mitch Cohen, a fragile and emotionally confused folk singer. Laughter was not the only thing that mattered. Because of the sincerity and heart that he brought to his performances, he stood out from the crowd. When Eugene Levy was in his later years, he collaborated with his son, Dan Levy, to create Schitt's Creek. This development brought about a surprising change in Eugene's career. In the role of Johnny Rose, the patriarch of the Rose family, Eugene brought a sense of warmth, humor, and depth to his character. Rather than being merely comedic, it was a deeply moving tale about the importance of love, family, and redemption. The fact that he was able to watch the movie alongside his children, Dan and Sarah, made the entire experience even more meaningful to him. In his life, the family has always been the most important thing. They are currently working together to create something. Eugene has managed to maintain his modesty despite all that he has achieved. In the background, he has been quietly supporting causes that are important to him, such as autism awareness and racial equality. It meant a great deal to him that he had a close friendship with John Candy, who was also a great comedian. Their relationship was more than just a professional one. It was quite personal. There is a void in Eugene's life that continues to be painful because of the loss of Candy, who passed away much too soon. Today, as Eugene continues to move forward, his accomplishments tell the story of his life. From his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame to the projects he has worked on with his children, he has left behind a legacy that is filled with love and laughter. But those who are familiar with him say that his humility and kindness are what make him who he is. It's not just that Eugene Levy is a talented comedian. He is a demonstration of the fact that in a noisy world, there are times when the quiet ones have the most significant impact. Everyone who has observed him believes that it is more than just luck, despite the fact that he likes to say that he has been fortunate. It's the heart. On the other hand, John Candy was born in Toronto on October 31, 1950, but he spent his childhood in Newmarket, which is located in northern Ontario. He was raised in a humble environment, which was influenced by the working-class background of his Catholic family. The journey through life was not always simple, and it quickly became even more challenging. It was at the age of 35 that John's father, Sidney, passed away due to complications with his heart. John was only 5 years old at the time. There was a hole in John's life that he would carry with him for the rest of his life because of the loss. In order to bring up John and his siblings, John's mother, who is of Polish descent, put in a lot of effort. The small house that they lived in at 217 Woodville Avenue in East York was filled with memories that were both happy and sad. But it was also the place where John's gentle and kind spirit began to take shape. When he was a young boy, he had lofty goals, but life had a way of putting obstacles in his path. While John was still in high school, he did exceptionally well in football and had aspirations of becoming a professional player. On the other hand, a knee injury put an end to that dream. Later on, John would say with a smile that was both bittersweet and sarcastic, "I thought football was it for me." But sometimes, life has other plans for you. Following his injury, John's life took a different path than it had before. After enrolling at Centennial College with the intention of majoring in journalism, he found that he was drawn to the arts by an internal force for some reason. Through acting, he discovered a sense of solace, and it quickly became his passion. He continued his education at McMaster University, where he enthusiastically embraced his new direction. There was a humble beginning for John in 1971 when he was cast in a small role in a play called Creeps. This was the beginning of a long and cherished career. He started out by playing supporting roles in Canadian films and television shows, and he put in a lot of effort for each role. His big break came in 1972 when he became a member of the Second City, which is a well-known improv acting group in Toronto. It was there that people first began to recognize his one-of-a-kind comedic talent. However, despite his growing success, there was always a shadow that haunted him from his childhood loss, something that never completely left him. By 1976, John had established himself as a well-known figure in Canada, particularly due to his role in SCTV. It was his characters, such as Johnny LaRue and William B. Williams, who brought laughter to the audience. Despite this, there was a serene melancholy that never seemed to dissipate, even though the humor was present. John's sense of humor was a gift, but it was also a shield, something that he used to protect himself from the world's view of the pain he still carried from the loss of his father at such a young age. John was able to establish himself in the American film industry after Hollywood began to recognize his talent in the late 1970s. In 1941, directed by Steven Spielberg, he had a small part, but it was his performance in Stripes, which was released in 1981, that truly captured people's attention. You couldn't help but root for John because he was the kind of lovable and big-hearted character that appeared on screen. He had a way of making you laugh while simultaneously making you feel something. His big break came in 1984 with the film Splash, in which he played the role of Tom Hanks's brother, who was a womanizer. John was not the type of person to bask in the spotlight, despite the fact that people fell in love with him over his humor and his warmth. He maintained his modesty, never allowing his success to alter the fundamental nature of who he was. That ache was still something he carried with him, and he continued to miss his father. The fame did not take away from that. Over the course of the 1980s, John established himself as a well-known figure in the Hollywood industry. His filmography includes Brewster's Millions, in which he co-starred with Richard Pryor, as well as Summer Rental. His reputation as one of the most affable and hilarious actors in the industry appeared to be strengthened with each new role he played. On the other hand, John always appeared to have a gloomy undercurrent, despite the fact that he was laughing. However, there were times when he would become quiet and lost in his thoughts, despite the fact that his friends would say he was the life of the party. Sometimes, when he was thinking about his father, who had never witnessed his success, he would say things like, "I wonder what my dad would have thought." John continued to put in a lot of effort over the course of time. He appeared in cameos in classic films such as Little Shop of Horrors and played roles that will live long in the memory in films such as Spaceballs. However, behind the scenes, his health was beginning to take a turn for the worse. In John's own life, the same heart disease that took the life of his father at the age of 35 cast a shadow over his life. Despite his concern, he rarely brought it up in conversation. In 1987, John Candy made a significant step forward in his career when he collaborated with Steve Martin on the film Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which was written and directed by film director John Hughes. The movie was well received by audiences, garnering a great deal of praise and bringing in nearly $50 million at the box office in the United States. On the other hand, John was aware of the considerable pressure and expectations that come along with being successful, despite all of the laughter. In the years that followed, he made a cameo appearance in the 1988 film She's Having a Baby, and then he went on to play the lead role in another Hughes production, The Great Outdoors, in which he appeared alongside his close friend Dan Aykroyd. On the other hand, only a few of his projects came out successful. In Hot to Trot, he provided the voice of Don the Horse, and in Who's Harry Crumb, which many people considered to be a failure, he starred. In spite of this, it possessed a certain allure, and John invested his entire being in it in the hope that it would resonate with the appropriate individuals. At times, it seemed as though his projects were a lot of different things. His previous work, such as Speed Zone, was a failure, but in 1989, he made a breakthrough with Uncle Buck. The success of that movie demonstrated that he was still capable of touching people's hearts. Are you doing well? Just who are you? The fact that his children appeared in supporting roles in the animated series Camp Candy that he created and produced for NBC also brought him joy. Family was the most important thing in his life, which helped him remain grounded. In Disney's The Rescuers Down Under, which was released in 1990, John used his voice to assume the role of Wilbur the Albatross, thereby maintaining the warmth for the audience. However, his brief appearance in the classic film Home Alone, which was released in 1990, stood out and demonstrated his enduring connection with Hughes. He would laugh at the fact that you win some and you lose some, but there were times when the losses weighed heavily on him. In the year 1991, he appeared in the film Only the Lonely, which received positive reviews but did not perform well at the box office. His participation in Nothing But Trouble, along with Delirious and Once Upon a Crime, was included on the infamous list of unsuccessful films, which added insult to injury for him. A shining example of John's talent can be found in Cool Runnings, which was released in 1993. The journey that the Jamaican bobsled team took was touching, and it served as a reminder to everyone of the importance of friendship and hope. In addition, he made a cameo appearance in the 1993 film Rookie of the Year, demonstrating that he still possessed that special touch, even in supporting roles. A dream came true for him when he directed his first comedy, Hostage for a Day, which was released in 1994. Wagons East, 1994, and Canadian Bacon, 1995, were his final roles, and both of them left a bittersweet feeling in his mouth. When he looked back on his career, it appeared that he yearned for more opportunities. Unfortunately, he was plagued by unfinished projects. Ignatius J. was supposed to be played by John. A movie adaptation of A Confederacy of Dunces was supposed to be starring Riley, but it never materialized. Additionally, he was interested in roles that seemed to be a perfect fit for him, such as Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle and Atuk, both of which were cast in films that were ultimately not produced. He was connected to other great comedians who had passed away much too soon. and it was almost as if fate was cruel to him. There was a time when he was being considered for a part in the remake of Last Holiday. However, Queen Latifah ultimately ended up being cast in that role. Additionally, there were rumors that he would be starring alongside John Hughes and Sylvester Stallone in a comedy titled Bartholomew vs. Neff. However, those plans were eventually scrapped as well. Even in animated films, they considered writing roles for him, such as Redfeather the Turkey and Pocahontas. However, these roles were ultimately eliminated after his death. Despite the fact that John's professional life was full of happiness and love, the specter of loss was always present. It was in a vulnerable moment that he once said, "I just wish for one more chance," demonstrating how much he yearned for the roles that he was never given the opportunity to play. Christopher Michael Candy and Jennifer Ann Candy were the two children that John Candy and Rosemary Hobor had together. John Candy was married to Rosemary Hobor. His faith provided him with solace in the midst of the ups and downs that life brought him. He was a devout Roman Catholic. Although he enjoyed spending time with his friends and basking in the sunshine while residing in Brentwood, Los Angeles, he suffered from a persistent sense of melancholy in his heart. Sports were another one of Candy's favorite things. In the year 1991, he joined forces with Bruce McNall and Wayne Gretzky to acquire a portion of the Toronto Argonauts, a team that competes in the Canadian Football League. They caused a stir in the world of sports by making provocative moves, such as signing Raghib Ismail, a star player in the National Football League. Tragedy struck during the filming of Wagons East in Durango City, Mexico, in the month of March in the year 1994. Candy passed away peacefully in his sleep at the young age of 43. Everyone was taken aback by the news. A spokesperson stated that it was a heart attack. However, those who knew him were aware that his difficulties had been rising steadily over the course of several years. As a result of his stress, John frequently turned to food. There were times when he weighed more than 300 pounds. He was at risk for developing heart disease due to a number of factors, one of which was a family history of heart problems at an early age. Sadly, his father had passed away at a much too young age due to a heart attack. It was Candy's intention to maintain a healthy weight. At long last, Eugene Levy has shared his thoughts on John Candy. During an interview, Eugene stated that John Candy was no more than a kind and generous individual. He had a natural way of being funny that seemed to just come out of him without any effort on his part. Whether he was performing on the stage at Second City or in the unforgettable roles he played in films, he was always a standout. The fact that his genuine personality shone through in everything he did was what made him stand out from the crowd. The allure that he exuded was noticed by everyone, and after observing him, it would really stick with you. He had this uncanny ability to conquer people's hearts without even making an effort. Among all of his roles, the one that people remember the most is probably the one in which he played airplanes, trains, and automobiles. Despite the fact that he was equally impressive in Uncle Buck, his performance in Planes elevated it to a higher level. He did an excellent job of portraying characters who were not the brightest, but despite their clumsiness, there was always a heart of gold hidden beneath their lack of intelligence. This was the enchantment that John did. People couldn't help but cheer for him because he played the fool with such genuine feelings that they couldn't help but show. Each and every one of the roles that he played was a reflection of his genuineness and warmth. Simply put, his collaboration with other actors was truly remarkable. In the course of their collaboration on a number of projects, John and his close friends frequently found themselves in roles that were a perfect match for one another. They would have such a good time bouncing off of each other on their television show. No matter if John was Dr. Tong or his friend Woody Tobias, the chemistry between them was nothing short of extraordinary. Both of them possessed a talent for portraying characters who were never really aware of what was going on around them, which resulted in something endearing every time. The fact that they were clueless did not prevent their characters from being lovable and relatable because they shared a connection that was visible on screen. On the surface, it might appear that working in comedy is all about having a good time and laughing, but the reality is that being on set or working on a project is frequently quite different. Funny stories did not occur nearly as frequently as you might have anticipated. In spite of this, there were times, particularly during breaks, that brought smiles. Despite the fact that John Candy passed away much too soon, we continue to feel his presence through the joy that he brought to a great number of people. This serves as a reminder that some people leave behind a label that time cannot erase. Do you find it incredible that the spirit of a person can remain with us for a very long time after they have left? Please leave your feedback in the comment section and don't forget to subscribe to the channel that you're watching.